You know that feeling when you finally break $5,000 in savings and you think, okay, this is it, I'm building momentum now. And then your car needs new tires, or your laptop dies, or your dentist finds a cavity, and suddenly you're back at $2,000, wondering if you'll ever actually get ahead. It's not random bad luck, and it's not because you're bad with money. There's a specific pattern that keeps 68% of Americans trapped below $5,000 in savings for their entire working lives. A pattern so predictable that once you see it, you'll wonder how you missed it. That pattern is why most people never reach $20,000. Not because they don't earn enough, not because they don't want to save, but because they're stuck in a cycle that resets them to zero every 8 to 14 months without them even realizing it's happening. If you want to understand what actually separates people who build wealth from people who stay trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to show you isn't about working harder or making more money. It's about recognizing the invisible trap you're in and knowing exactly how to escape it. Here's what most people think when they look at their bank account. They think, I just need to save more, or I need to make more money, or I need to be more disciplined. And yeah, those things help, but they're not the actual problem. The real problem is something financial advisors rarely talk about because it's uncomfortable to admit. Most people never reach $20,000, not because they can't save money, but because they don't understand how money actually escapes. Think about the last time you tried to save money. Maybe you cut back on eating out, packed lunches for a month, skipped the coffee runs. And you felt good about it, right? You were being responsible. Maybe you even saved $400 or $500 that month. But here's what actually happened. While you were focused on cutting $6 lattes, you weren't paying attention to the $500 car insurance renewal that automatically hit your account, or the $89 annual subscription you forgot you had, or the small home repair that turned into $800 because you waited too long to fix it. This is what I call the leak economy, and it's designed to keep you poor. The truth is that most people operate in what I call financial survival mode. In this mode, you're not actually building wealth. You're playing defense. You're patching holes. You're reacting to crises instead of preventing them. And here's the thing nobody tells you. As long as you're in survival mode, reaching $20,000 is mathematically almost impossible. Not because you can't save money, but because the cost of being poor keeps resetting you to zero. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you don't have savings, everything costs more. Your car breaks down and you can't afford a $1,200 repair, so you do a cheaper $400 patch job that fails 6 months later, costing you another $600. That $1,600 total could have been $1,200 if you'd had the money up front. Your credit card has a balance because of an emergency 3 months ago, so you're paying $47 a month in interest. That's $564 a year, just gone. Not building wealth, not invested, just paying the cost of not having had money when you needed it. You rent because you can't afford a down payment, so you're spending $1,800 a month on an apartment instead of $1,400 on a mortgage. That's $4,800 a year extra, not because renting is bad, but because you didn't have the initial capital to have that option. This is the poverty tax, and it's not a real tax. It's just what happens when you don't have a buffer. Every financial decision you make from a position of scarcity costs you more than if you made it from a position of abundance. And here's where $20,000 comes in. $20,000 isn't just a number. It's the threshold where you finally escape the leak economy, where the poverty tax stops applying to you, where you transition from playing defense to actually building something. But most people never get there, not because they can't, but because they don't understand the 3 invisible barriers standing between them and that number. Let me show you exactly what those barriers are. The first barrier is what I call the reset trap. And if you've been trying to save money for more than a year, you've definitely experienced this. Here's how it works. You start saving. Maybe you get to $3,000. Then something happens. Your transmission goes out. Your dog needs surgery. Your company does layoffs and you need to float yourself for 2 months while job hunting. Whatever it is, you drain your savings back down to $500 or less. And here's the psychological part that nobody talks about. When this happens, most people don't just lose money, they lose momentum. They lose belief that saving is even possible. They think, what's the point? Every time I save, life just takes it away. So they stop trying as hard. They go back to their old spending habits because it doesn't matter anyway. And now they're starting from $500 again, but with less motivation than they had the first time. The average American experiences this reset 3.7 times before they either break through or give up completely. And most people give up. But here's what's really happening. These resets aren't random. They're predictable. You can literally calculate when they're going to happen based on your savings rate and your emergency probability. If you're saving $500 a month and you have no emergency fund, statistics say you'll face a financial emergency requiring $1,000 to $3,000 roughly every 11 to 14 months. That's just math. Car repairs, medical bills, home maintenance, unexpected travel for family emergencies. Life happens on a schedule, and if you don't have a buffer, it resets you. This is why most people never break $5,000. They're caught in the reset trap, constantly building up and getting knocked down before they can build momentum. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this might change how you think about emergency funds. Most financial advisors will tell you to save 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. That's $15,000 to $30,000 for most people, which is great advice if you're already financially stable. But if you're starting from zero, that goal is so far away it's demotivating. You're never going to save $25,000 before the next emergency hits. It's impossible. So here's what actually works: the minimum viable buffer. The minimum viable buffer is not 6 months of expenses. It's the smallest amount of money that breaks the reset trap for your specific life situation. For most people, that number is between $5,000 and $8,000. Why that range? Because that covers one major car repair, $1,500 to $2,500, one moderate medical emergency, $1,000 to $2,000, 1 month of expenses if you lose your job, $2,000 to $3,000, small buffer for random chaos, $500 to $1,000.
With $6,000 saved, you can handle most emergencies without resetting to zero. You might drop to $3,500 or $4,000, but you don't lose everything. You maintain momentum. And this is where the math gets beautiful. Once you cross $6,000 and avoid a full reset, getting to $10,000 is significantly easier. Because now you're not starting from zero after each emergency. You're starting from $4,000 or $5,000. Think about it like a video game. If you die and restart from level 1 every time, you never progress. But if you die and restart from level 5, you can actually beat the game. $6,000 to $8,000 is your level 5 checkpoint. It's your respawn point that's high enough to actually make progress. But here's the part that most people completely miss, and it might be the most important point in this entire video. Once you hit $10,000, something remarkable happens, not just psychologically, but mathematically. Your money starts making money at a rate that matters. $10,000 in a high-yield savings account at 4.5% interest generates $450 a year. That's $37.50 a month. Not life-changing, but it covers your cell phone bill without you doing anything. $10,000 invested in index funds at an average 10% annual return generates $1,000 a year. That's $83 a month. That's groceries, or gas, or part of your rent. But here's what's really happening. You've entered what I call the acceleration phase. In the acceleration phase, your savings rate doesn't feel linear anymore. It feels exponential. Not because you're making more money or saving more aggressively, but because 3 things are working in your favor simultaneously. First, you're no longer paying the poverty tax. Your emergencies don't wipe you out, so you're not paying for the same problem twice. You're not paying credit card interest. You're not taking payday loans. That's saving you $1,000 to $3,000 a year right there. Second, your money is generating returns. Even conservative returns on $10,000 give you an extra $400 to $1,000 per year. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about, you start making better decisions because you're not desperate. You can wait for sales. You can negotiate better rates because you can walk away. You can take a slightly lower paying job if it has better long-term prospects because you have runway. These three factors create a compounding effect. You're saving more because you're losing less to the poverty tax, you're earning returns, and you're making better decisions that save money in the long run. The gap between $10,000 and $20,000 takes roughly half the time as the gap between $0 and $10,000 for most people. Not because they're suddenly making twice as much money, but because they've entered the acceleration phase. But most people never get there. They stay trapped below $10,000, experiencing resets, never building real momentum. And here's where things get really frustrating. The biggest barrier to $20,000 isn't actually financial, it's psychological. It's what I call the identity problem. Most people have an unconscious financial identity, and for most people stuck below $10,000, that identity is, I'm someone who struggles with money, or I'm not good at saving, or I'll never be wealthy, that's just not who I am. This identity acts like a thermostat. When your account balance starts rising above your comfort zone, your brain subconsciously finds ways to bring it back down to your normal. You hit $7,000 saved and suddenly you deserve a vacation, or you need to upgrade your phone, or you find yourself being less careful about small purchases because I have money now. And just like that, you're back at $4,000 and your brain feels comfortable again, because $4,000 matches your identity as someone who struggles but gets by. This is why lottery winners often go broke. Their identity doesn't match their bank account, so they unconsciously sabotage themselves back to their comfort zone. Breaking through to $20,000 requires updating your financial identity. You need to start seeing yourself as someone who has $20,000, not someone trying to save $20,000 or someone who will one day have $20,000, someone who already has it. And this identity shift happens around $12,000 to $15,000. That's when you've been above $10,000 long enough for your brain to start accepting it as normal. When seeing 5 figures in your account stops feeling weird and starts feeling right. But here's the thing, you can't fake this identity shift. You can't just tell yourself I'm wealthy when you have $3,000. Your brain won't believe it. You have to actually do the work of getting to $10,000, staying there for a few months, and letting your nervous system recalibrate to that being your new normal. And this brings us to the most important question. How do you actually get there? Because understanding the barriers is one thing, crossing them is another.
If the reset trap is the main thing keeping you below $20,000, then the solution is building what I call an anti-reset system. This is not a budget. Budgets tell you where your money should go. An anti-reset system protects your money from being stolen by the leak economy. Here's how you build it. Step 1. Calculate your minimum viable buffer. For most people, this is 3 months of bare minimum expenses, not comfortable living, survival mode. Rent, utilities, minimum food, essential transportation. That's usually $4,000 to $8,000, depending on your location. Step 2. Open a separate savings account specifically for this buffer. Not your checking account, not your investment account. A separate high-yield savings account that you only touch for true emergencies. Step 3. Fund it aggressively. This is your only financial goal until it's fully funded. Not retirement, not investing, not paying off low-interest debt, just this buffer. Because until you have this, you're stuck in the reset trap. How aggressively? The fastest path is 50% of your savings rate. If you're currently saving $600 a month, put $300 toward the buffer and $300 toward everything else. This might feel unbalanced, but remember, the goal is to break the reset trap as fast as possible. Step 4. Once you hit your minimum viable buffer, protect it religiously. This is not vacation money. This is not, I really want this thing money. This is your shield against resets. Step 5. Now continue saving above the buffer. Every dollar you save above your minimum viable buffer is progress toward $20,000. And because you have the buffer, you won't lose it to random emergencies. Here's what this looks like in practice. You have $6,000 in your emergency buffer, untouchable. You save another $4,000 above that. Your car needs $1,500 in repairs. You take it from the buffer, dropping it to $4,500, but you keep that extra $4,000 safe in a different account. Then you rebuild the buffer back to $6,000 before you start adding to your progress account again. This way, you never fully reset. You always maintain momentum. Most people who successfully reach $20,000 do it this way. They build a protected buffer, then they build above it. The buffer absorbs shocks. The amount above it grows consistently. And here's where this strategy becomes really powerful. Let me show you what this looks like over time. Person A tries to save $20,000 without a buffer. They save $500 a month. After 10 months, they have $5,000. Then their car needs repairs. Back to $2,000. They start again. After 8 more months, they're at $6,000. Medical emergency. Back to $1,500. They start again. After 6 months, they're at $4,500. Surprise tax bill. Back to $1,000. 3 years later, person A has $4,000 saved. They're exhausted, they've lost motivation, they've experienced 3 major resets. They feel like they'll never get ahead. Person B uses the anti-reset system. They save $500 a month. After 14 months, they have $7,000 in their protected buffer. They stop adding to the buffer and start building above it. After 4 months, they have $7,000 in buffer plus $2,000 in progress. Car repair hits for $1,500. They take it from the buffer, dropping it to $5,500, but the $2,000 in progress is safe. They spend the next 3 months rebuilding the buffer to $7,000. Then they continue building progress. After 8 more months, they have $7,000 in buffer plus $6,000 in progress. Medical emergency costs $2,000. Buffer drops to $5,000. Progress stays at $6,000. 4 months later, buffer is back to $7,000. They continue building progress. 6 months after that, they have $7,000 in buffer plus $10,000 in progress. 3 years later, person B has $17,000 total. They're still building. They've never experienced a full reset. Their momentum is building. They can see $20,000 clearly in front of them. Same timeline, same savings rate, same life emergencies, completely different outcomes. The difference? Person B protected their progress. Person A didn't. 5 years from now, person A might still be at $6,000 or $7,000, still experiencing resets, still wondering if wealth building is even possible for people like them. Person B will be at $35,000 or $40,000, not because they earn more, not because they're more disciplined, but because they broke the reset trap and entered the acceleration phase. And here's the crazy part. Once you hit $20,000 using this system, the next $20,000 comes even faster because now you're really in the acceleration phase. Your money is generating serious returns. The poverty tax doesn't apply to you anymore. Your financial decisions are made from abundance, not scarcity. The gap between $20,000 and $100,000 is shorter than the gap between $0 and $20,000 for most people who use this system. But you have to start. You have to build the buffer. You have to protect it. And you have to decide which person you're going to be. Look, I know some of you are thinking, $6,000 emergency fund? I can barely save $600. And I get it. If you're in that position, scale it down. Start with $2,000, just enough to cover a small car repair or a minor medical bill. That's your first checkpoint. The numbers matter less than the system. What matters is that you build a protected buffer, and then you build above it. That's how you break the reset trap. This is not about getting rich quick. This is not about some secret investment strategy. It's about recognizing the invisible barriers keeping you below $20,000 and systematically removing them. Most people never reach $20,000 not because they can't, but because they don't understand the game they're playing. They think it's about discipline or willpower or making more money. It's not. It's about building systems that protect your progress from the chaos of life. You get to decide if you want to be person A, stuck in the reset trap, feeling like you're running on a treadmill forever, or person B, building momentum, entering the acceleration phase, actually making progress towards something real. The path is right there. The system works. The question is whether you're ready to start building your buffer today. Because every month you wait is another month you stay in the trap.